Hello, friends. Let's talk about Nancy Pelosi. She's one of the worst ever speakers of the House, accused of hypocrisy at every turn. She prevented the passage of the stimulus bill, and she hoisted a radical agenda upon the Democratic Party that they didn't want and they did not like. Republicans have hated her since day one, but now the Democrats have turned on her too. So in today's episode, we're going to be talking about how pampered Nancy has led the Democrats to the very brink of a civil war. You're watching Political. As always, my name's Connor Allen. I'm joined by Ian Smith. If you haven't subscribed already, please do subscribe. Please do join our community. Please do leave a like if you like the content. And leave us a comment. Tell us what you thought. Tell us your opinion, because we're really interested in that. And onwards now with the article, Ian.
Yeah, so we got something from the Daily Mail. I mean, this is in referral to a call that was made among Democrats after the election, where obviously they have a bit of a chat about everything that went down. Nancy Pelosi has kind of come up with quite a considerable amount of opposition. So, Nancy on the brink. Democrats are now plotting to oust Pelosi as Speaker after their House majority shrunk amid her refusal to do a COVID deal, as AOC-led squad circles the embattled leader. So, the House Speaker, Pelosi, is facing tough questions on her ability to win enough votes to retain her leadership after Democrats shrunk their House majority and moderates in the party plotted to back a challenger. Democrats went into Tuesday night expecting to pad their majority in the House by marching deeper into Trump's 2016 win territory, but instead, Republicans made gains. Already, two centrist Democrats in the House say they're contacting colleagues to round up support for House Democrat Caucus Chairman Hakeem Jeffries, a top Pelosi lieutenant, for Speaker in the next Congress, according to The Hill. Several moderate House Dems only won tough re-elections after vowing not to back Pelosi for another term as Speaker, and they view Jeffries as a potential establishment leader who could garner support from AOC's powerful squad of progressives. So, you know, we know that the left is kind of like this broad coalition, that they have, you know, the progressives and obviously the more moderates on the side and everyone in between. And we know it's difficult to maintain that kind of cohesive relationship with them because they do actually want very different things, whereas the GOP is a far more cohesive coalition that Trump has created. So in many ways, it's really no surprise. But what we're seeing here are we're seeing the moderates more concerned than the progressives. The moderates are concerned because they're struggling to win. They struggle to win seats. Many of them lost their seats in what were Democratic strongholds. We've seen in places like Texas, in the South, where they had huge Hispanic shift towards Trump and the GOP. And they probably went into that election thinking my seat's safe, and they lost. And this is because of their flirtation with, you know, socialism and all of these radical ideas like defund the police. They're trying to appease the progressives, and by doing so, they turn off so many moderates that, you know, many people in the party who don't believe in these progressive ideals are now kind of getting a bit sick of it because they're losing their seats.
Absolutely. And can you imagine? It could have been a hell of a lot worse. Imagine if Bernie Sanders had won the Democratic nomination. Imagine if Kamala Harris had won it. You know, there are many, many radical left people in the Democrats. And what they don't do, okay, what the moderates would like them to do is just to kind of accept that in their area, they can advocate their far left ideals, but they never stop there because they influence. They put so much effort into influencing and attacking their own side. We see this with the squad, don't we? Because now it's expanded. I think a lot of moderate Democrats are quaking in their boots because what they do is they rile up their supporters, and they actually go ahead and attack moderate Democrats for not being progressive enough. Well, as you said, if the number one concern in your community is crime and law and order, you don't want to be, you know, defunding the police. You don't want to be there, you know, looking at criminals and saying, oh, you know, it's not your fault. It was your upbringing's fault. But don't worry, we're going to get you a psychologist. You stab someone. You know, it's political suicide to be associated with these people. And this is their play, isn't it? Because now they're taking action. Now that Nancy Pelosi, who has backed the squad and she's hoisted a radical left agenda upon the Democrats, now they're making their move because she's very nearly led the Democrats into a complete disaster.
Yeah, so they were expecting this blue wave to expand the majority and, take the Senate, take the presidency, and be able to put through basically everything that they want to put through. And, obviously that's not happened. And now she's facing scrutiny for it. Now, obviously, I'll tell you what, a lot of people obviously might say, listen, you guys are from the UK. What do you know about American politics? Here's the thing, actually. We've experienced kind of a similar thing that's happening in America now. You just seem to be a few years behind us. Over here, we effectively have a same two-party system. It's not to the same extent a two-party system, but broadly speaking, it's a two-party system. And the left-leaning party, the Labour Party, they changed the rules for how they elect their leader after they lost an election in 2015, I guess it will be now. And they basically made it, all you had to do was pay £3 to join the party, and you could vote for the leader.
What, $5?
Yeah, so like $4 or something. And
so suddenly they had all these people who are conservative members for their entire life who just decided to join the party because they were so inspired to vote for the new leader, and they elected the far left candidate. And it actually backfired in 2017, right? When Jeremy Corbyn beat Theresa May in the election. Then in the most recent election, you had a competent candidate against Jeremy Corbyn. It was an absolute massacre. And yeah, Ian, it's exactly as you say. We have just gone through the same thing. And look at Labour now. Labour is in the midst of a civil war. So for our American listeners, the previous Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn, who is very, very far left, a huge report has just come out which has explained how he facilitated anti-Semitism within the Labour Party. And he was expelled from the party because of that, or suspended, with possibility of being expelled. But they see it as a plot. So now they're in a civil war, and they're not looking like they're going to challenge again for many, many years to come. I imagine they were in government. This is what's going to happen to the Democrats.
Well, this is it. So for all of, they're stuck between this this line that they have to toe between appeasing the moderates and the radicals, or the progressives, or whatever you want to call them. And the reality is, though, like, you saw the exit polls from this election. Now, of course, I don't think the exit polls probably aren't that accurate. Okay, we've seen polls aren't exactly the most accurate way to judge public sentiment, but they showed that the moderates and the conservatives vastly outnumbered the progressives. Okay, when people were asked what is your political belief, moderates and conservatives vastly outnumbered the progressives. So by appeasing, or listen, it's okay to have some progressives in your party. That's fine. Obviously, you want a broad selection of ideas to select from, but if you give them so much power, they're giving them so much power. This article is talking about the squad, the powerful squad. They've got 7 members or something, 7 members out of 200 odd in the House. And yet they have so much power over the party's policy. They dictate so much of that policy. Joe Biden's mandate is heavily influenced by the squads, the Green New Deal and all of these things. And it's incredible. It's going to turn off so many voters. We've seen this now. Now, if Joe Biden wins, he becomes the president, but the House the House majority is shrunk and the Republicans keep the Senate. What does that tell you? It tells you that they are rejecting Trump, or maybe his personality. I don't know. But not his policy, and not the policy of the GOP. But they are rejecting this radical policy coming from the left. There's just not enough people that believe in this. So if they fully embrace it, in 4 years from now, maybe Kamala Harris will be the nominee, maybe somebody else from the progressive side of the party. If that's the case, they should be prepared to lose in a landslide, and they will lose all over the place.
And the thing is with these people, Ian, you can't give them a single inch of ground, okay? And I'll explain why. So I've worked in two political parties. There's been a kind of progressive wing in both. If you try to negotiate, so politics is all about compromise. And it's about, okay, I can't get what I'd like through. So I'll go and speak to people who might kind of think the same way as me, but disagree on a certain thing. And we'll come together in the middle and we'll vote for this thing, right? But you can't do that with progressives, okay? You go and speak to them, and these people, they will never, ever be in government. They will never, never have a stake in the policy because they are the eternal outsiders. Their entire political base, it's based around opposing the system, right? So if you try to go to, implement a minimum wage bill and you speak to a progressive, they will always peg their acceptable minimum wage at $5 higher than you. They will always peg their environmental carbon emission reductions at 5% higher than you. So if you've ever tried to negotiate with them, you can't, because then they just turn around to their base, their quite substantial base, because they all have these massive Twitter followings from people who say, yes, Queen, and that's problematic, okay? And they mobilize these people and they put pressure on the people actually doing the policy. People prefer to, radicals prefer to stick with radicals rather than go with the sometimes boring issue of policymaking. So they really are, if they reach a critical mass, and it looks like the squad's very close to doing that, even though it's only 7 members, they absolutely destroy parties' electoral chances. And bringing it back to Labour, that's exactly what happened. We had a group called Momentum, and it had a very, very small number of MPs, but a huge backing. And they used the resources to influence the party and take over the party like almost instantly. It was incredible. This is what the Democrats are scared of.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, listen, we're going to be producing a lot more content now. Even after the election, there's a lot more to come. So stay tuned. And we're just ramping it up more and more. And I think we've got a lot of plans, and we talked about this, that we will probably be announcing some of the stuff that we intend on doing over the coming months soon. So yeah, stay tuned. If you haven't already, give us a subscribe, give us a like, give us a comment down below, and we shall see you in the next one.